This is Valley News Live at 5.
Good afternoon, everyone. 3 months after his arrest for drunk driving, a Cass County deputy who worked in the jail has been fired. Jacob Danielson was let go for violations of county policy and repeated violations of policy with both the West Fargo Police Department and the Sheriff's Office. Danielson worked for West Fargo PD before he was hired by the county. In August, Danielson was arrested for DUI following a collision in the parking lot of a Fargo car wash. 2 of his children were in the car at the time. Danielson did plead guilty to DUI and is on probation for almost a year. He was placed on paid administrative leave after his arrest. Now, coming up on Valley News Live at 6, how our continued reporting on this story led detectives to more information on Danielson to ultimately close the investigation. In other news, Valley News Live has learned that those who threatened to shoot up a school have been dealt with. Someone called our whistleblower hotline last night, the message saying someone's going to shoot up the high school, but didn't specifically say what school. We called Fargo police, who then notified area schools. Then law enforcement learned that the possible threat was toward a DL high school. Detroit Lakes Police took extra precautions, and then students in the district did report that a student had posted on social media a statement that they were going to shoot up the school. Officers say school officials were able to deal with the situation. No names will be released. Sexual conduct charges have been filed against a man accused of groping 2 women in Moorhead grocery store. 37-year-old Kedrick Roman Baker could face up to a year in jail. One of the women told authorities it happened in Cashwise on September 30th. Baker is accused of bumping into her from behind and feeling between her legs. Another woman also reported on the same day at the same store, Baker walking up behind her and touching her butt. Surveillance video shows Baker touching the second woman's behind. Baker has not been arrested but will be seen in court again next month. New today at 5, a Grand Forks County woman has died after being struck by a car in Tennessee on Saturday. Kathy Vasicek and her husband Jason were in Nashville on the night of a UND hockey game when police say they fell into a lane of travel and were hit by a car. Kathy died that day. Jason is listed in stable condition at a Nashville hospital. The driver of the car, Tori Davis, was cited for driving on a suspended license and not having proof of insurance. Also new at 5, Fargo's police chief says that the department is working on new tactics to control racing and speeding in the city. Chief David Zabolski says that there have been increased enforcement in areas due to several complaints from residents. He says that police have issued more than 70 citations over the course of a week, mostly between the 12 and 1700 blocks of 10th Street North. The chief is also supportive of a law that would be considered owner's responsibility. Now, that would allow for holding owners of vehicles accountable. The fact that our weather has been relatively quiet is okay, but it's been relatively colder as well. Let's find out how low our temps will drop tonight. Hutch?
Mike, thanks so much and good evening. It was a cold start to the day, and we do see that there's a little break in the clouds starting to show up in Grand Forks. And clear skies means more cold temperatures overnight. Now, we got a little warmer than thought today for some, but this morning started out mighty chilly. Remember, we talked about a chance for teens in that Walhalla and Langdon area, and that's what happened. 19 as well this morning in Park Rapids and Wadena. Fargo, well, excessively mild here at 31 for the overnight low temperature. That was because of lingering clouds. Now, we are starting to see a breakup of the clouds north and west. Here's where we'll see the most persistent cloud cover in northern and eastern Minnesota tonight. Temperatures near 40 right now, mid-30s out to the far east. Here's your planner. We'll quickly dip into the 30s. By 7 o'clock, low 30s. So we'll be in that freezing category as we go through most of the overnight. Still a fair amount of clouds with light winds. How low will we go? Well, temperatures are going to be in the teens and 20s once again tomorrow, but then we start talking about a little bit of a warm-up. I'll have details on that here in a minute.
All right, thanks so much, Hutch. A Minnesota parent who is also a state representative has introduced a bill that would essentially lock the clock. Mike Freiberg says that once Congress gives Minnesota authorization to move to daylight saving time permanently, the state will switch the timing in the spring and never change the clocks again. The representative says that he's surprised that the bipartisan agreement so far has passed both sides. Today, as voters across the country head to the polls to cast their ballots in state and local election, all eyes are on Virginia's neck-and-neck governor's race. Analysts say the winner could give good insight into the 2022 midterms and a snapshot of how voters are feeling about President Biden's performance in office so far. Alice Barr has the very latest from a polling place in Arlington, Virginia.
Voters across the country are headed to the polls today in a series of state and local races that put a spotlight on national issues, from police reform in Minneapolis to vaccine mandates in New York City. But all eyes are on Virginia, where a hotly contested governor's race could say as much about President Biden's first year in office as it does about the candidates themselves.
I think he's done a great job. I think what he's looking at is how do we improve our lives.
This is a time where I really think that the Republicans are the way to go.
Polls show a neck-and-neck race between Democrat Terry McAuliffe, a former governor,
I need you out there working. This is so important for us.
and Republican Glenn Youngkin, a political newcomer hoping to win in a state former President Trump lost by 10 points.
I've just felt this great surge of momentum for the last 6 to 8 weeks.
President Biden has thrown his weight behind McAuliffe.
Show up for a proven leader.
But the election comes as the president's national approval ratings are dropping, with his agenda stalled in Congress. Many believe the Virginia results could be a leading indicator of where next year's midterm elections are headed, potentially shifting control of the House and Senate.
It's always a question of which voters from the pool actually show up. And Democrats have had a terrible time this fall, mainly because of what's going on in Washington, getting Democratic voters excited.
A tight race, closely watched for broad implications about this country's political future.
Another theme to watch in some of these races today, progressives versus moderates, as President Biden struggles to unite those divided factions within the Democratic Party in Congress to get his agenda across the finish line. The White House is laying out a new strategy aimed at working to prevent active military and veteran suicides. The rule would require firearm dealers to make secure storage or safety devices available for purchase. President Biden also announcing a federal push to get those at risk of suicide to voluntarily limit their access to anything that could be used for harm. And he said he wants to see a national red flag law passed by Congress. It would allow law enforcement to temporarily remove guns from people deemed at high risk of harming themselves or others. We're waiting for the CDC to formally approve the use of Pfizer's COVID vaccine for children 5 to 11 years old. But the latest data shows a majority of parents aren't ready for their kids to get the shot. Jay Gray has a closer look.
In the next couple of hours, the Centers for Disease Control expected to approve emergency use of Pfizer's COVID vaccine for children 5 to 11 years old, leaving parents to make the final call on whether their kids get the shot.
We'll be the first ones like, come on, let's go there. He's a champion to getting his vaccine, so.
28 million children are now eligible for the vaccine. Distribution has already started. By Monday, 15 million doses will be available nationwide. Children will get 1/3 the amount of medicine given to adults in 2 shots 3 weeks apart, which means kids could be fully vaccinated by Christmas. But for many families, a jab isn't in their holiday plans.
I'm not giving that vaccine to any of my children.
In a survey by the Kaiser Family Foundation, 73% of parents say they will not vaccinate their children right away. Many pointing out children rarely get sick from the virus and questioning expedited testing protocols and potential side effects. A lot of pediatricians, though, are pushing back on that concern.
We have the best scientists in the country who are reviewing this data, who are reviewing it independently. And if all goes the way that we expect it, will show us that the benefit of vaccination outweighs the risk.
And health official stress provides a key weapon in the fight to ultimately end the pandemic. Jay Gray, NBC News.
Here at home, second graders from Ed Clapp Elementary and their teachers brought over 500 to 750 cards for essential workers today. They were meant to thank them for their hard work during the pandemic and heading into the holidays. Some wrote personal messages of the time they or a family member spent at the doctor's office.
Thank you for being brave. Thank you for being kind. Thank you for caring for us. Thank you for spending hours and hours at work.
Essentia tells us they are going to hang them up in the employee entrance for all staff to read. As inflation rises and the pandemic continue, food pantries around North Dakota are seeing an increase in people who need help. According to the Great Plains Food Bank, they saw an increase of almost 45% in need. Besides non-perishables, one of the biggest items he's as seen a need for are diapers. For more information about how to donate, visit GreatPlainsFoodBank.org. Later on Valley News Live at 5, how cloning could come to the rescue for one of the planet's most incredible trees.
Temperatures in Grand Forks and Fargo exceeded my expectations. We made it into those low 40s today. Out in the Valley City area. I'll have hour-by-hour details on another cold day, but then a warming trend to talk about too. Your forecast is next.